Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon if you're on the West Coast, and welcome to episode 135 of Between the Slicks here on the Monday Morning Racer YouTube channel and Facebook page. Shout out to everybody who's tuning in here tonight. As you can see, I'm in the Funny Car Chaos mood, got the cowboy hat on. Funny Car Chaos is this weekend. I'm excited, and we got a special guest here tonight, Lyle Greenberg. Here's your defending A-Field champion out of the last year's Funny Car Classic out at iconic Texas Motorplex. So, as you guys all know, with this show, we kind of talk a little news, talk a little drag racing first, and then bring on the guests about 30 minutes into the show. Well, we're going to do it a little different here today. We're actually going to bring on Lyle Greenberg in just a second. He will kick off the show here on Between the Slicks. So before we do that, have to do a little house cleaning. So if you're watching now, make sure to like this show, share this show. Shout out to everybody who's tuning in, like I said, on the Monday Morning Racer YouTube channel and Facebook page. Shout out to everybody who's tuning in on Drag Racing Connection on Facebook. And also, hello to everybody tuning in on competitionplus.com Facebook channel. So we got a lot to talk about, but like I said, a little bit of different run of show here today. So we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to get out of this hat right here. We're going to bring on your defending A-Field champion out the Funny Car Classic, Mr. Lyle Greenberg, the driver of the Cone Hunter Nostalgia Nitro Funny Car. We'll be back, ladies and gentlemen, once I find the commercial.
If you own a beautiful modern muscle car like this 1320 Challenger, I'm sure you don't want it stolen. Because the Challenger and many other modern vehicles have an easily accessible neutral release strap. That was your coin holder in your central console, and beneath that there's this red cord that someone can pop, put it into neutral, and potentially easily steal your car. But at Destroyer1320.com, they have the TDS, Theft Deterrent System, which is a cover over that strap using factory mounting points so that you don't get popped by a thief. So make sure to go to Destroyer1320.com using promo code MMR for 15% off and get your Theft Deterrent System TDS and steal the thieves' hope.
Ladies and gentlemen, the driver of the Cone Hunter Nostalgia Nitro Funny Car and your defending champion of the Funny Car Classic in A-Field, Mr. Lyle Greenberg. Lyle, how's it going, man? Welcome to Between the Slicks.
I'm doing fine. I'm so tickled to be here at Texas Motorplex and NX. What a race this is.
And so, like you said, I'll tell you what, I've been to Texas Motorplex once in my lifetime, but that is such an iconic drag strip. You think about all the history there. First Nitro car down the track, Daryl Gwynn, 526, 278. The first ever 4-second pass in Nitro, Eddie Hill. I mean, just so much great history. Corey Mack, 320 miles per hour in 1997, I believe. So just an iconic racetrack the Texas Motorplex is.
It is, and to tell you the truth, it's hard for me to believe that we even get to race a Nitro car here on the same track that those guys did, because those guys are legends.
And you are the defending A-Field champion out of the Funny Car Classic, third year of this race. I got to ask you right now, are you ready to defend your title, man?
Well, based on today, the answer is absolutely not. We actually hurt a motor on the warm-up today. We were going to make a test run earlier today, and we hurt the motor. And my guys are over there right now still swapping motors out.
Oh, really? Yeah, Lee told me what happened right before then. Tough break, but how many bullets you guys got in the trailer? I'm sure you guys have enough, right?
I just have one spare. So we've got our one extra bullet in the car now.
Awesome. Well, like I said, a lot of hard work for you and your team, but I'm sure you get it ready to go for first qualifying session tomorrow night. And so I got to ask you, Funny Car Chaos, big race. I feel like, I just mentioned all those historical names, Daryl Gwynn, Eddie Hill, but you think about the Funny Car Classic, third year, and it's in its infancy, but it's already such a big race. Like, this is a huge, race. You think about the March Meet, races you've attended before and actually won before. You think of the U.S. Nationals. I feel like this Funny Car Classic, but then the next 20 or so years is going to be one of those crown jewel races that we all talk about, one of those historical races. I mean, it's the biggest funny car show on earth. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, this is such a great series. This is probably the best race because it is at the Texas Motorplex. But yeah, this thing is it's got momentum. It gets bigger every year. More and more people are seeing the value of running this series.
Yeah, for sure. I've never been to one. Leah's keep telling me I have to get out to a Funny Car Chaos race. I want to do, I think it's Eddyville, the Nitro Chaos Funny Car Chaos back to back. I got to do that one. So that's definitely on my to-do list here this year. So 2023
and
Funny
you
Car.
should absolutely do it. I mean, you need to go to one somewhere I've actually never raced at Eddyville, but I've been to Eddyville as a spectator. I actually went to the first Nitro Chaos race here, year and a half ago at Eddyville, and what a great facility that is.
That's the cornfield, right? One with the cornfield at the end of the
That's the
racetrack.
cornfield. If you go off the end, you're going in the corn.
David Gallegos, he did that last year.
David Gallegos has done it. Anthony Whitfield has done it. I mean, there's been quite a few people off in the corn.
So, third Funny Car Classic here at the iconic Texas Motorplex. And so, a little dynamic I love too is the call out. And so, what's cool about this weekend is that you and Kyle Smith, the only two winners of the Funny Car Classic, are going to go at it here in qualifying. I think tomorrow. Just kind of fill us in how that all came together, who called out who, and is there any money on the line?
To tell you the truth, I don't even know how it happened, but it makes perfect sense that it happened. I mean, to have the two defending winners from the last 2 years makes total sense. And the truth of the matter is that, Kyle probably feels like he's got some unfinished business because he had us covered. I mean, he had qualified better than we had last year, and he had to pedal the car on the run. And I took a wild guess, I guess, at the tree and had a good light on the run and stayed with him on the tree. And, I think I'm the underdog in this deal for sure.
You mentioned you're the underdog. So when you won last year, I remember watching you on the Funny Car Chaos live show, and you were saying the plan for that weekend was to, try to be in the B field. You wanted to be in the B field, but you ended up being in the A field, ended up winning it. I'm sure this year you want to defend that title in the A field. I'm pretty sure about that, correct?
You always kind of figure you're going to let the chips fall where they may. But absolutely last year, it's true story. I sat out the third qualifying session hoping that I was going to get bumped into the B field because I didn't think I had any chance at all to win the A field. And nobody bumped me, and I ended up in the A field, and I got some great lucky breaks along the way, and we won the thing. This year, I'm not going to try to do anything. I'm going to go out and run the car, and whatever it runs is what it runs. And if we're in the A field, the B field, whatever.
Run your race and let the chips may where they fall. So I like that. I like that. And so you talk about last year, getting, some lucky breaks. I mean, but let's go to the semifinals. So you do your job against Kyle Smith. Second round, semifinals. You're lined up against the Blue Max. I mean, you talk about the Blue Max, one of the most iconic cars in drag racing history. And then you have the Cone Hunter, a great looking race car in itself, 78 Corvette Nostalgia Nitro Funny Car. How cool is that to line up at the Texas Motorplex against the Blue Max? I mean, I'm pretty sure that was badass for you.
It was. I mean, I always like hearing your show because you're such a great historian. You know the history of the sport, and I kind of feel like I'm the same way. My friends all think that I have like some sort of encyclopedia in my mind, but I saw all those cars race. I mean, I saw the Blue Max run when Richard Tharp drove it for Harry Schmidt, and yeah, so it's an iconic car. It's a legendary car. I actually lined up next to the Blue Max 2 years ago at the very first Funny Car Classic. We were the first pair out in the first qualifying session of the Funny Car Classic. And yeah, I couldn't hardly believe that I'm sitting there running the Blue Max at the Texas Motorplex. I mean, how cool is that? Now, when we ran him last year, I rushed to point out that we actually had lane choice. We had lane choice over Ronnie. I mean, we had every good chance of winning that race. Unfortunately for him, he had a fuel line break on the burnout, and he had to shut off and give us a single. But I'd like to believe that, with us having lane choice and everything else, it would have been a great race.
For sure, for sure. Like I said, two great looking cars on a starting line. And then in the final round, you got another break again, taking on Brad Tuttle in the Nitro Burner, and he can make the call in the final round. You got the win. But, and I know, this is all last year. We're going to get to, this year in just a second. But what I love for you, I do a lot of work in NHRA Heritage Series, and you went to the March meet last year, and you won that thing. So they call you the Cone Hunter, right? But you don't be hunting cones. You hunt trophies. Because, I mean.
Well, I like to joke about the whole Cone Hunter thing. It's a branding deal. I mean, plain and simple, it's a branding deal. We have sold tens of thousands of Cone Hunter t-shirts since we've come up with that branding of the Cone Hunter thing. People love it. The Cone Hunter t-shirt, I've had people tell me all the time they think it's like the coolest t-shirt ever. And I joke because, I mean, I think in my entire career, I've maybe hit 4 cones, 3-4 cones, something like that. So I joke all the time. I say, well, that's because we hunt them, but we don't kill them.
I like it. I like it. I like it. Hug, you may hug that center line a little bit, but we ain't touching no cones. You can count them
That's
on your
right.
fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so, just going back into last year, and this is my final question about last year. But can you just put into words just how, like, aside from winning the March Meet and the Funny Car Classic, just overall, last year was an amazing year for you. It seemed like you couldn't lose last year.
It was truly an amazing year. I mean, in March, as you said, we opened the month of March winning the March meet. We ran a class called Nitro Pro Comp out there, and we won that deal. And we closed out the month of March winning the Chaos Classic here at the Motorplex. And then I had some health issues that kept me out of the seat for, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, something like that. But we came back at the end of the year and we won a big race up in Denver, and we won a race in Albuquerque. Yeah, we didn't lose any races last year.
And so, how do take that momentum and formulate that into another successful season this year? What's the plan for this year?
Well, based on killing a motor on the warm-up stands, I'd say very poorly. I don't know. I've been doing this a long time. This is my 49th year of driving race cars.
Wow.
And I've had years where it seemed like I couldn't do anything wrong, and it didn't matter what I did, it was right, and we won a lot of races. And I've had other years where it seemed like I couldn't do anything right, and no matter what we did, we didn't win any races.
Mhm.
And it's just kind of the nature of the sport. You just do the best you can and hope helps everything lines up. Hope the stars align.
Yeah, drag racing stuff happens, right?
Stuff
Some stuff
happens.
is out of your controls, and
That's right.
you know,
Well, I mean, I made a comment about your show with Lee last week. You guys were talking about us winning and talking about how anything can happen at a chaos race. And I made a comment on that, on a thread on that I feel like I'm the poster child for anything can happen at a chaos race.
for sure, for sure. And so coming into this year, and obviously, anybody you line up against, you want to beat. But as a historian like you are, and just a drag racing fan that you are, and a competitor, you've lined up against the Blue Max. What's some other funny cars out there that you would like to kind of line up against and take on? Maybe here this week, or maybe in the future.
I don't really, even though I love the history and I know a lot about all these cars and everything else, I don't really feel like that I necessarily belong racing any of them. If I do, we give them a good race. But to me, it's just cool to be able to do it. I mean, honestly, I'm racing a nitro funny car. How cool is that? It don't matter whether you're racing Ronnie Young or anybody else in the world. Ain't nothing cooler.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That definitely is badass. And so you mentioned a second ago, this is your 49th year of racing. First off, congratulations on that. That's pretty badass in itself, the longevity of your career. But just kind of take us, fill us in on kind of like the trajectory of your career, the journey you went through from where you first started up until driving the Nitro Funny Car.
Oh, geez. I don't think your show's long enough to do that. But so I actually started out. My dad was one of the people that built Albuquerque Dragway, and he was part of the New Mexico Timing Association to build it. So I grew up at the track. I grew up going out there from day one in Albuquerque. Their first race was 1964. I was 4 years old. But as soon as I got my driver's license, I started bracket racing in my grandmother's Chevelle, and they had a police athletic league high school program there that in 1975 I won a scholarship because I won the season championship on that. And so between that and continuing to run my grandmother's Chevelle, and I had a ride in a comp eliminator car in the late 70s, I joke that I'm probably one of the only guys that can say they actually put themselves through college using money from racing. But yeah, we ran comp eliminator in the late 70s. I went off and I raced go-karts for a while in the early 80s, ran a super comp car late 80s, went off and did some circle track racing with sprint cars in the early 90s, and ran a top alcohol funny car. We ran a big show top alcohol funny car from 97 to 2002. And then I took about, I don't know, 10 years off, I guess, to start racing with my girls. I have two daughters. One of them is just a really, really kick-ass circle track driver. She ran sprint cars and midgets and asphalt stock cars. And my youngest daughter, who ran drag cars, she ran junior dragster, super comp, top dragster. Took 10 years off to work with them on their careers, and then came back in 2012 with a blown alcohol altered that we ran with the Western Phil Altered group, which is a primarily West Coast based group. And then in 2016, I decided, if we're going to do nitro, we better do nitro soon because you're getting pretty old to be doing that. And if you don't do it now, it won't happen. And so we built this car through 2017, debuted it in 2018. In fact, the debut for our car, competition debut, was at the Funny Car Chaos race in Amarillo in 2018, and we runner-up at that deal. Ken Singleton beat us in the final, but I was pretty jacked about getting runner-up in the A field at that first race.
And I love how you said, you're getting up there in age. You're like, man, I want to go nitro racing. And so you took a chance of yourself. You got it, went after it, and got it done. And I love that. And so, and like I said, it's a beautiful race car, 1978 Corvette, Cone Hunter, beautiful paint scheme. I feel like with a lot of these nostalgia cars, there's always some type of like backstory, or this person owned this car or something like this. Is there any cool backstory within your chassis or anything like that, or anybody that's helped you
Well,
along the way?
the closest I can come to a backstory on that for you is for years and years, even with my the Western fuel altered car and stuff, I wanted to have a T-shirt. But I always thought, who's going to buy a T-shirt that says Lyle Greenberg on it and a caricature of the race car? It doesn't have any pizzazz. And I was literally watching the March meet in 2016. Yeah, 2016. I was watching the March meet on a live stream, and the fuel altereds were running, and it was late at night. The track was cold, and two or three of them hit the cones. And a woman that I know over in Arizona, Paula Ross, she was on the chat on the live stream, and she says, "Man, those guys are hunting cones tonight." And I was like, "Eureka! Cone hunter, that's it." And I got this idea for how the caricature of the car would be on the T-shirts and everything. And like I say, it's been a pretty good brand.
Nah, I love it, love it. I want to just, show the fans at home, a look at this beautiful race car here at nighttime at the Texas Motorplex. Like I said, I just love the paint scheme and, like I said, the whole branding of the Cone Hunter. Here you are again at the Texas Motorplex.
Well,
Here's,
and I want to point out that it's paint. It's not a wrap. My son-in-law and his dad run a paint and body shop in Albuquerque, and David Carl Peters put together the paint scheme, and they laid it out and they painted it, and yeah, it's pretty. I like it.
definitely, definitely. And so you mentioned, this all started with your dad and everything like that, and in your daughter's race. So you come from a whole family of racers. It's everybody in your family basically, has jumped behind the wheel in some form type of motorsport, I would say.
Absolutely. I mean, I talked about my daughters. My grandson Connor just started racing quarter midgets last year. His dad, my son-in-law, who's married to Jennifer, ran Indy Lights cars. He
Oh
made it
wow,
all the
really?
way to Indy Lights. His dad, Jim, so my daughter's father-in-law, ran IRL cars. He actually won an IRL race over in Phoenix, Jim Guthrie, and he, I don't know, had 4 or 5 Indy 500 starts, something like that.
Wow, really?
Yeah, so it's pretty entertaining when we get together as a family to watch the Indy 500 or watch the Chili Bowl or watch the U.S. Nationals. There's a lot of experience sitting around the TV when we watch that stuff.
Is there any like ever like any sibling rivalry, like IndyCar's better? No, drag racing's better. No, circle track racing's better. Anything like that? You guys are
I
respecting
think
each
I think that we all probably think that our little niche is better, but we don't say it.
I got you. I got you. We respect all former motorsports here, but
Well,
I
exactly. I mean,
yeah.
I didn't. I forgot in my little summary. I spent some time road racing. I road raced when my daughter married Sean Guthrie, the guy who I was talking about who'd been to Indy Lights. I kind of went, wow, I got this new son-in-law and he's got some skills on road race stuff. And so I had him help me put together a vintage Formula Ford program.
Oh, really?
And we ran vintage Formula Ford races all over the Southwest for about 3 years. And he coached me on the driving, and he turned me into a pretty good road race driver. I got third place over at the Vintage National Championships at Circuit of the Americas in 2014.
Oh,
Um,
wow. That's
yeah,
cool.
lot,
That's cool.
lot of people doing a lot of things in our family.
And so you mentioned that road racing, circle track racing. I'm sure that all helps once you jump in behind that nitro funny car. I mean, it has to, right? Just seat time,
Absolutely. But
experience.
the biggest thing in all of it is the race cars are different, but racing in and of itself is it's always got the same goal. You want to win and you want to go fast. And yeah, I mean, the experience that I had in a sprint car, I could argue that it serves me well when I drive the car as a fuel altered, and it's skating all over the place and doing stuff like that. But I get people ask me all the time, so which one's better? Which one's harder? Which one's this? Which one's that? And they're all different. They're all fun. They're all cool. I probably think I'm one of the few guys that's ever won really pretty big races in those different forms of motorsport, and I don't think any one of them's any harder than any other.
Mhm. Yeah, I've talked to Corey Lee quite a bit. He's driven Big Show Nitro funny cars, nostalgia funny cars, fuel alters. He's driven it all, and he basically says like, yeah, they're all totally different, but at the end of the day, they're all still handfuls to drive one of
Exactly.
these
They
nitro cars.
they
Yeah.
absolutely are. I mean, I drove a top alcohol funny car for quite a number of years, and I do think a top alcohol funny car may be one of the hardest cars to drive just
Yeah.
because of the pedal clutch and zinging the motor up and getting it launched at the right RPM and making the shifts and all that stuff. I would say the nitro car is definitely not maybe as technically difficult as a top alcohol car. It may be a bit more intimidating though.
Mm, for sure. And you mentioned earlier, so Albuquerque, New Mexico, that's where you're from. And what I love about Funny Car Chaos this year is that they're moving a little bit more west this year, and they're actually going to be making a stop in New Mexico here this year. I mean, how excited are you? Are you about that? And
I'm thrilled. I couldn't be happier. I mean, I think it's going to be so much fun to have a funny car chaos race at my hometown, at my home track. Now, I got to tell you, I've had a lot of people tell me that they think that I've got like a lock on winning that race because it's my home track. And I'm telling you, that ain't the case at all. In fact, I'll go on record right now in public and say that I think it will be a screw blower converter drive car that wins that race. Um, Albuquerque's a tough place to race. We'll be racing in July. We'll probably see a density altitude maybe on some of the afternoon qualifying runs of 9,000 feet of density
wow,
altitude. And you combine that with a kind of a tricky track surface, and it's a tough track to go down.
wow, really, that's awesome, man. I tell you what, New Mexico in July, I'm sure it's gonna be hot and greasy, muggy, and like you said, it's gonna be really
Well,
tough conditions.
it won't be muggy.
Okay,
We don't have humidity in New Mexico, but it will be hot. But once the goes down, it'll get cool, and the air will get a lot better. But good air in Albuquerque is like 8,000 feet.
really. Okay, so I gotta ask you. So I don't know. We're just going off drag racing for a little bit. I've never been to New Mexico, but I'm a big food guy, and I feel like whether it's competition plus power hour or Monday morning racer, we got to talk about food just for a second. Not just let's not divert too much. But how's the food in New Mexico? Because I might need to make a trip down there. What's it like? They have good Mexican food in New
Is
Mexico?
what?
How's the Mexican food in New Mexico?
Oh, well, that's the best. But we don't have Mexican food. We have New Mexican food. It's different. So, New Mexican food is a blend of not only the Mexican culture, but the Indian culture, because we have
Okay.
a large Indian influence, Native American influence in New Mexico. And so, our real New Mexican food is a blend of those two cultures, and it's quite different than Tex Mex or even Mexican food.
Mm.
And it's
So
better.
I got you. Well, so I just gotta say, I live here in LA, Southern California, and I will have to have an argument that we probably have the best Mexican food. I would say, just saying, I'm a
Not
little
a
biased.
chance. Not a chance.
So let's now go back to the Funny Car Chaos Classic, the season opener race of the 2023 Funny Car Chaos season out at the iconic Texas Motorplex. Over 50 funny cars are entered at this race here this weekend. For somebody who's driving in it and for somebody who's never been to this race before, just kind of fill them in on just kind of the vibe, what it's like actually racing in this big time event, the Funny Car Classic.
Well, the vibe, I mean, to kind of take a page in history from the stuff you and I have loved, it's like Steve Evans would call the fiberglass forest. I mean, you look at the staging lanes when all these cars are in the lanes for qualifying, and it's just flip tops as far as you can see. It's the coolest thing ever. And the fact that it's kind of an anything goes rules package, and you've got blown alcohol cars, you've got nitro cars, you've got nostalgia cars, you've got we had Jade Cook that was running a nitrous car last year and running a pro charge car this year. Um, you don't find that anywhere else.
Mhm. And what I love last year is the picture they did on the track where they had all the funny cars lined up on the racetrack, bodies up and everything like that. I mean, that was so cool. And
It
man,
was. I mean, it brought to mind the pictures that I'm sure you and I have seen from the 32 funny car shows at Orange County International Raceway or at Seattle or something like that, where they'd bring all the cars out on the track, and you go, "Wow, look at all those cars."
Yeah, I feel like I was born maybe 20 years too young. Wasn't able to actually, I could see it through magazines and pictures and videos, but just actually living it, I feel like Funny Car Chaos is probably the closest thing to it, I would say.
I think it is. I mean,
Mm,
I used to think that I was born 10 years too late because I convinced myself a long time ago that if I'd have been 10 years older in the mid or the late 60s or early 70s, that somehow, some way I'd have figured out to go race Top Fuel. And that by the time I got to be old enough to do that, that was just a pipe dream. But Funny Car Chaos gives me kind of an opportunity to believe that I'm kind of like the guys back in the 70s.
mm. And you mentioned Funny Car Chaos and just how special it is to race there. And they treat you like family. You've raced a lot of different cars and a lot of different series. Would you say Funny Car Chaos is probably the best series you've raced in? I mean,
Absolutely. There's no question. Chris and Tara Graves have done such a good job. I mean, Chris really understands how to promote a race, how to run a race from both sides of it, from the racer side of it, from the fan side of it, or I guess I should say three sides of it, from the track side of it. And he does a fabulous job. He treats us as racers very, very well. I think that it's probably no secret that a lot of racers don't think they always get treated really very well by the promoters or the sanctioning bodies or whoever it might be. And Chris and Tara do a great job. They treat us great. I mean, I feel so fortunate that Funny Car Chaos came along when it did, to allow me to run my car. Because I mean, we do some match racing, and again, it kind of me feeling like I'm like a 70s match racer or something like that, which we can only do two or three a year, but we do two or three match races a year, and then we do two or three chaos races a year, and that's pretty full schedule for me. But without chaos, what am I going to do? I'm going to run two or three match races and maybe, I don't know, go to Bakersfield once a year or something like that. It's a godsend. It's a great series.
And I remember seeing different interviews from you saying, when you built this car, you didn't want to make it heritage legal so you could, kind of, expand your horizon to race in different series and stuff like that. And just mentioning the heritage series, a boatload of funny cars over there. Chris Graves told us, there was plans and talks to maybe have a funny car chaos race at Bakersfield, but plans kind of fell through once COVID took over. What has to happen for some of those guys? Because I know like Drew Austin and Pat Austin, they really love Funny Car Chaos. Bobby Cottrell, the champion in Nitro Funny Car, they've talked about how they like Funny Car Chaos. What do you think it's going to take to kind of get some of that audience and bring them over and say, hey, let's finally do it and let's race over there? What do you think has to happen?
I don't think I'm plugged in enough with those guys to really know
Gotcha.
what it would take. You'd have to believe that Chris, if he was successful in getting a race in Bakersfield, if he and Blake were able to come to an agreement and do that, you got to believe that a lot of those guys would run it.
Yeah.
But like I say, I'm not plugged in enough with those guys to know what their wish list might be or anything like that.
Gotcha.
But the money that they run for in the Heritage Series and the set on kill part of the Heritage Series for those guys, chaos would be a great deal for them because, well, we're seeing it right now with the Heritage cars that are running this Legend Series, where they're running at the NHRA national events. They're running some of those races at the NHRA national events. They're running them to 1,000 feet. And that is a great deal for those Heritage cars because those things burn themselves up down at the finish line on quarter mile stuff. They're always burning pistons. And I was at Las Vegas at the national event last October when they ran the Heritage cars in the Legends deal. They ran them to 1,000 feet, and I didn't see near as much tore up stuff as you would see, say, at Bakersfield or something like that. So their parts attrition would go way down running 8 mile for sure.
And so it's funny that you mentioned that because we had Bobby Cottrell, the 5-time Heritage Series Funny Car champion, on last night, and I basically asked him because we had killer conditions at Bakersfield. I mean, the air was good, the air was cool, and I asked him, I was like, "Hey, why didn't we see more low 560s, maybe somebody dip into the 550s, which is kind of big time numbers for them. And he was basically saying, man, it was like, one, I mean, people were just burning up their stuff back once they got past 1,000 foot and stuff like that. So that's why we didn't see any big time, runs out of that weekend. So it's funny that you mentioned that and bring that up because, that is one of the problems, with those
It
cars.
really is. And, I mean, I don't want to go get all up in their business, but the reason I didn't go heritage racing is because to me, it just seemed crazy the parts carnage that they have in that deal. And I wanted to go nitro racing, but I wanted to go nitro racing in a way that didn't tear up a lot of stuff. In fact, when we won the Nitro Pro Comp thing there last year, we won that race. We made 5 runs over the course of the weekend, and we had the heads off the car one time in those, and that was on Thursday. And some of those heritage guys were kind of noticing that. By Sunday, a couple of them heritage guys are coming by and going, "Man, have you guys even had the heads off this car?" And I'd say, "Not since Thursday." And they're like, "Wow." And I like the way I run my car. I'm sure they like the way they run their car. It costs a whole lot less to run my car.
Now, funny, Heritage Series, funny car, top fuel, all just great racing, a great series, and love to see the up and up that they're coming on. And so for you, like I said, you've been around this for a long time. You've driven for a long time. Like you're a historian of the sport. I got to ask you, you see back here, I got, these cool John Force diecast and everything like that. Who are some of Lyle Greenberg's heroes in drag racing? Who are some drivers you looked up to or fans of, as you came
So
up?
my hero growing up was a local guy in Albuquerque who ran a AA fuel dragster, the only AA fueler in Albuquerque, New Mexico in the mid and late 60s, guy named Bob Pavioni. And Bob Pavioni and my dad were friends, and Bob was my hero growing up. Beyond that, I don't really get into the whole hero thing. I just want to be like them. I understand that that's probably part of what a hero thing is, but I don't look at them that way. I just try to figure out how I can really, be like them.
Mhm. Nah, that makes total sense. I feel like, for you, I think it's, obviously there's people that you admire or you look up to, but at the end of the day, you want to be the best version of yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can see that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. So, like John Forrest, my favorite driver of all time. But if I was a drag racer, I want to beat John Forrest. Idols become rivals. That's what I say.
Well, and I got to tell you, I love Forrest. I think he's cool as heck, and he's done obviously fabulous things for the sport. And I have a little bit of, I guess, an affinity or connection with Forrest because he brought his girls up to race cars, and I brought my girls up to race cars. And his girls have made it on a bigger stage than my girls. But the truth is that in a lot of ways, I'm sure that his life and my life, at least in our terms of our family, have kind of paralleled each other.
And then, so you mentioned John Forrest. Well, we're talking about John Forrest. As far as your car, nostalgia funny car, but it's basically a big show car. And you have some Steve Torrance, John Forrest parts on there, some blocks on your car, correct?
So I do. So when we put this car together, I got hooked up with Jake Sanders. You probably know who Mark Sanders is, Mr.
Yeah.
Explosive. So Jake, his son, I got hooked up with Jake when I started putting this car together. And frankly, by the middle of 2017, I had a car and I had some parts, and I was kind of paralyzed. I'm like, man, I don't know that I really know what I'm doing to finish this car off. Didn't know what I wanted to do with a pump. I didn't know what I wanted to do with a blower. And I got hooked up with Jake, and Jake's the one who put my combination together. He's the one who visualized how we would put my combination together. And he's really the guy that was the catalyst to get us going on the car. And so Jake at that time was crewing on a part-time basis for Billy Torrance on Steve's dad's car. And so Jake lives in Brownsburg, so he's got tons of connections in the nitro community in Brownsburg. And so yeah, when we were putting my car together, we were sourcing parts, used big show parts from all the big teams.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And so before we get out of here, Lyle, we said third funny car classic, one of the biggest funny car races in the world. Well, probably the biggest funny car race in the world, I should say. Over 50 funny cars are entered. Any final things you want to say about this weekend, what you're looking forward to or anything like that?
Well, I mean, if there's anybody watching this and they're within 100 miles of Dallas, Texas, they need to be at Ennis tomorrow and Saturday to watch the Funny Car Chaos. That's number one. Number two is if you're not able to watch it and you only get to see Facebook feeds or whatever you can get on the thing, you should watch that because it's just darn good racing.
What's old Lee doing next to you right there? I know he's in the room. What's he doing?
Lee disappeared. He's not even in the room.
Man, Lee is one of the hardest working dudes out there. Obviously, working for Funny Car Chaos, does interviews, videography, everything like that. So watch out for him. I think he's gonna get in a little trouble this weekend. Make sure he stays good this weekend.
I will certainly try.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lyle Greenberg, driver of the Cone Hunter Nostalgia Nitro Funny Car. He is also your defending champion in the A field out the Funny Car Classic second annual last year. Lyle, thank you for coming on Between the Slicks, and best of luck to you this weekend, man.
Darren, thanks for having me on. I love doing shows like this.
Awesome, man. Go and get you another one.
All right, take care.
Awesome. How about that, ladies and gentlemen? Lyle Greenberg, like I said just a second ago, your defending champion in the A field out at the Funny Car Classic out at the iconic Texas Motorplex. So, like I said, kind of different runner show here tonight. We start off with our guests. We usually, bring on the guest about 30 minutes into the show, but Lyle's such a great guest and he's busy and he has stuff to do. But we're going to take a quick break, and we do that. We're going to talk a little drag racing news. So stay tuned. I'm Darren Williams Jr., and this is Between the Slicks.
Power-Built Tools exemplifies innovation in the tool industry. From hand tools, power tools, and even tool storage. Check out powerbuilt.com for power-built tools. And remember, use promo code MMR15 for 15% off at purchase.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 135 of Between the Slicks here. Actually, we're about an hour earlier than usual, so if you haven't already, make sure to like this show, share this show, and let everybody know, hey, we're an hour earlier. We just talked to Lyle Greenberg, so if you're a little late, you have to go back and play it forward. But, now we're going to talk a little drag racing, but a full weekend of drag racing slated here this weekend. And first off, we got to kick it off, like we're saying, the Funny Car Classic, the third annual Funny Car Classic, March 23rd to the 25th this weekend. Over 50 funny cars entered in this great event. My buddy Lee Craft, the Monday Morning Racer, is out there. We'll be working that event. And like I said, over 50 funny cars. You got Julie Natus in the injected nitro funny car. You got Kevin Kinsley in his nitro burner car. You have Joey Haas, reigning champion Kirk Williams. Kirk Williams dominated Funny Car Chaos last year. Jeff Cameron, so many great names in the field. Nick Pelosin in his nitro burner. Just so many big names out at the Funny Car Classic here this weekend. Over 50 funny cars. It should definitely be a great show. And like I said, I feel like, we talk about the March meet. We talk about the U.S. Nationals. You think of the Snowbirds, the U.S. Street Nationals for Pro Mod. I feel like, the Funny Car Classic is already a huge race. It's in its infancy, but it's already so big. Just think about 20, 25 years from now. This is going to be one of those crown jewel events that everybody wants to win, especially if you're a funny car driver. This is definitely one of the races you want to check off that bucket list if you are a funny car racer. And not only, as a trophy up for grabs, but we got call outs throughout qualifying. This person calling out this person calling out this person. It's going to be great. And like we just saw, Lyle Greenberg is going to take on Cal Smith in a call out, I believe, tomorrow. And that's cool, is because Cal Smith and Lyle Greenberg are your only two Funny Car Classic winners. Cal Smith won it in 2021. Lyle Greenberg won it last year. Both your A-field winners at the Funny Car Classic. I think Lee Craft is back. I think he wants to come on for a second. Lee, how's it going, man?
Darren, man, how's it going? It's going great. It's going great, man. Nitro has been burned. Methanol has been burned. Rubber has been burned. The Classic is well underway. It's just testing. Been a solid day out on the line, holding the camera, making drag racing look good again.
Definitely, man. And so, like I was just telling, the whole crowd, what I'm looking forward to are these call outs. I was looking at the graphic right here. I mean, just break it down for us. Like I said, you got Kevin Kinsley taking on Joey Haas. You got Kirk Williams taking on Jeff Cameron. Those two dudes went at it for the championship last year. We got some great call outs for tomorrow.
We do. And let's start there at the top. Joey Haas. Joey Haas right now is low ET of the meet with a 349 at 202 miles per hour. That mile per hour is low because he clicked it. They've got more leg to stretch in that Nimrod machine. But going up against old War Wagon, which technically in altered trim is the world's fastest fuel altered. They did not have a great year last year in funny car trim at this event, but maybe, very, very well, maybe turn it around. I just actually talked to Kevin Kinsley, just talked to him, and he said that they have a great warm weather tune-up, and we're going to have good weather, a little warmer weather, so be on the lookout for War Wagon. But Joey Haas interview later on to come out on the Funny Car Chaos channels with him lowering the boom and making notice to everyone else that Nimrod has come out to state their renowned nature.
And so, we mentioned all the heavy hitters. We talked about Julie Natus, and we talk about, we've seen what they do in that injected nitro funny car. We mentioned reigning
Only
champion
one
Kirk
hit
Williams.
today.
Only one hit today. How'd she do?
One hit. It was a 3-second pass, if I remember correctly, a high 360, might have been a 370. Terrible me. When I film, I don't remember anything.
It happens.
I'm terrible about that. But it was a solid hit. It was an A to B pass. I'm sure they didn't even do the full pull. There is certainly more there. Really, what Randy Meyer has been working on, Julie has been making lap after lap after lap in effectively what is Megan's hot rod. And I've come to learn that the dragster that Megan will be competing in Nitro Chaos and the funny car that Julie will be campaigning in Chaos events, whether it's Funny Car Chaos or Nitro Chaos, they are both not NHRA legal. So old man Randy doing some experimenting and playing out here in the Chaos world.
I'm going for it. I like it. I like it. I like it. So coming back to this weekend, though, so we mentioned Julie Natus, you mentioned Kirk Williams, reigning champ, Jeff Cameron, Joey Haas, Kevin Kinsley. Who are some drivers out there that maybe aren't getting talked about enough that you think could come up and surprising people here this weekend?
Jade Cook, for one. Jade has finished in the top 5 in points in this series, a third in points 2 years ago. They had a rough year last year, but when it was right, they did run well. Brand new combination, centrifugal supercharger, the world's only centrifugal supercharged funny car, shifting from the world's only nitrous-assisted funny car to that combination. So easier maintenance, theoretically easier to get some power, and I don't know. I think Jade is poised to have a great year in Funny Car Chaos. She's got some new threads from Taylor Motorsports and their fire suit. She's looking good in it. Got some stickers actually on that car to make it look like a car, headlights and cutouts for all the centrifugal elements of that way in which you supercharge an engine. I think they're definitely going to figure it out because they come from a world of small tire racing, and they understand more combinations than just nitrous. So I think they're going to get it together. I think they are going to be a thorn in the side of all the people that try to knock down the scoreboards. I expect her to be a solid B field car, and that is a good place to be in. Tom Furchess is a solid B field car in his Made in America funny car, and he finished second in points last year, if I remember correctly. Again, remember, whether you compete in the A, B, C, or if there happens to be a D field, you are running for the totality of the championship, no matter what field you're in. So, yeah, you might do well in the A field, but if you stumble there and someone never stumbled in the C field, you might very well lose out, though you had the faster car on the ticket tape. Beyond Jade, there are so many newcomers. I was talking with David Ratton and talking with Chris Graves and so many others of like, what stories do we need to cover at this event? And there's honestly too many stories at this event with over 50 funny cars. It seems like everybody has brought out a brand new combination to kick Kirk Williams' ass. And there's, Chris Graves right there, folks.
That's the man.
Yeah.
The man, the myth, the
legend.
legend.
That's right. The
Yep.
man.
Y'all are the guys, right?
Yeah. Oh.
So you mentioned Jade Cook, right? And hopefully I don't mess this up, but I bet she's going to try to be a nemesis towards her competition.
Oh, see, I like you. You're learning, man.
You like it?
I
You
like
like
that.
that?
I
You
like
like
that.
that?
I like
You
that.
like
I like that. See, in the interview with Joey, I was like, Nimrod is a man of renown in the Bible. Well, man of renown here after testing is, you got to set it up.
I can't wait to see it. Can't wait to see it. So, obviously, not just funny cars, it's field altereds, nostalgia eliminator, some gassers out there. So hold on, real quick. So I started off the show, right? Had my Have a cowboy hat on to start the show. You're going to a rodeo tonight, right? If I remember correctly.
Maybe. It has been a busy, busy day. There's actually a party here, and hopefully I can have my own party at the party or elsewhere. So that's the plan.
A party at the Texas Motorplex. I like it. Anybody performing at all?
What's the band, Chris? We got a band. What? Touching Voodoo will be performing.
I like it. I like it. Okay.
Yeah.
I like it.
They're
okay.
a band from Dumas. Yeah, Dumas, Texas. Okay. Yeah. There's going to be a live entertainment, food, and
barbecue, right? Oh, tequila. Tequila make her clothes come off. I like it. This is a family show. I'm sorry. This is a family show. I'm sorry. Let's get back to drag racing. So, any other stories, Lee, you want to tell us about here at the Funny Car Classic, the 3rd annual Funny Car Classic, man? Any other storylines?
Today has been a solid test day. There has not been that much carnage out on track. Things went rather smoothly. I can update that Mitch King in his Bone Shaker funny car, which he put in a heft up combination compared to what it had at the finals. He it's an old body to him, but it's like a new body for that car. It's actually a body that he won IHRA national events with way back in the day in funny car. But yes, they went out there and testing, got the death wobble, and it shook so bad even on the burnout, broke the rear end. And really? Kevin Kinsley's here bringing welding gear down to fix some things, and they're actually looking for a strange rear end right now. So we might have Mitch King fall out of this thing, which would be sad. Look, I think one of the stories overall, and it's even something I mentioned in the interview with Joey Haas, big show-esque style cars, nitro, big pumps, maybe, not quite the blower that they have at the big show, but the combination is there. They haven't won this thing, and we're going into the 3rd year. Everybody thinks, oh, the nitro car automatically going to win. It's unfair that nitro runs against alcohol. They hadn't won.
Yeah, you go back to the first one, the inaugural, Dale Worsham in the final round, having trouble getting backed up, and then, smoked the tires. And then last year, Brad Settle couldn't make the call in the final round.
Could not make the call.
So we mentioned the Texas Motorplex, iconic racetrack, one of the best racing surfaces in the world. What do you think we could see this weekend? How's the track? What's the drivers been saying about the track here this weekend as far as after testing?
So far, I have not heard anything negative. And, remember, Joey made the run that is low ET of the meet right now.
Yeah.
Really middle of the day. Maybe even late afternoon. It was around 2 p.m. if I remember correctly. And, the track has got a lot of sun on it by then. It's got heat in it. They think, he told me flat out, he expects 2 more tenths out of it at least.
Really? Okay. Man, flying. And another car I would love to see, well, look perfect in Funny Car Chaos, and I mentioned this to Lyle Greenberg, like Drew Austin, that new Ford body, that old Man of War body, that would look so good at Funny Car Chaos. And Drew and Pat Austin, they like Funny Car Chaos because they came up to you and told you they follow.
Oh yeah,
that'd be a great looking car.
Drew,
for Funny Car Chaos.
Pat, Chaos, come on, Chaos.
Bring it on. Hey, before we move on, Lee, I just want to give a shout out to everybody who's in the comments right now. So we got Sam Foger saying good afternoon. Good afternoon,
hey,
Sam. And we got Casey Beckmeyer saying, hey, Darren. Hey. What's up, Casey?
Going bracket racing.
And then Jason Romero, that's the man right there, Mr. Lyle, talking about Lyle Greenberg. And then Doug Core, always in everybody's show. Want to give a shout out to him. He's so supportive.
Doug's very supportive of me, of everyone else, and loves his chaos too. See you in Louisiana, man.
And then a special comment right here. You always got to get moms in there. You got to.
Hey, I can't complain. I have a great mom. I really do. I'm so thankful for her.
Hey, Lee, so obviously this is your show, man, and we're talking about Funny Car Chaos, but do you want to transition to a little NHRA a little bit? Because, the NHRA Arizona Nationals is this weekend. You kind of want to break that down a little bit? Sure,
let's talk about it. I don't got anything else to do right now. I can't pin down the next interview, if you know what I mean.
I got you. We're just gonna, I got you. I know where you're going there.
You know where I go.
Well, before we move on to NHRA, I want to give a shout out to this dude right here, Kevin Stowe. So I don't follow TX2K, but that was obviously this past weekend. And they actually announced that the next race, since Houston Raceway Park is closing, where it's usually held at, is going to be moving to the Texas Motorplex next year. He won
Correct.
DCT Pro. And look at that Lambo, man. How about that? That is
That's
one
a
sweet
good looking
race
car.
man, in the Lambo. Getting it done. I like it.
Those guys know how to tear up money, though. Dang.
I didn't want to go there. But,
Dang.
And so moving on now here at the final. Well, it may not be the final Arizona Nationals, but they're calling it right now the final Arizona Nationals from Wild Horse Pass Motorsports Park.
Well, I
And
do
so
like to say this. I don't know if we should say the final Arizona Nationals. It
Yeah.
may very well be the final race at Wild Horse Motorsports Pass, but I've said it on this show, but you've mentioned it. It's been said on Competition Plus Power Hour from Jim Hughes himself that Tucson could very well make a play at a national event. So the Arizona Nationals may not die.
Oh, no, definitely. You are definitely right about that. And so here at the Arizona Nationals will be the debut of the Mission Foods Too Fast, Too Tasty Challenge. Obviously, which is a rehash of the semifinals from the previous race. And what's on the line is money and points, bonus points towards the countdown. And we'll talk about, how we feel about that in just a second. But I just want to show this to the crowd at home. Semifinal rematch. Obviously, we have Mike Salinas, Leah Pruitt, and then on the other side of the ladder, Steve Torrance taking on Doug Coletta in Top Fuel. Who you think gets it done in Top Fuel here this weekend? Doug. I'm going with Steve-O.
I'm going Doug because it's in qualifying and not eliminations.
Okay, I like it. I'm going with Steve-O. I think Steve-O pulls it out. Nitro Funny Car, we got Matt Hagan, Alexis DeJoria, and then J.R. Todd and Chad Green. I'm going with Matt Hagan. I think Matt Hagan, wins that rehash of the semifinals. He always
Matt
runs good at
Hagan
picks.
in that is simply the strongest one of all of those.
Yeah.
Again, not to say that any of the other competitors are second tier, but Matt certainly has the car that stands out regularly. I tell you what, though, Chad Green in that group, they certainly are feeling it after a spectacular Gator Nationals. Had him on the Competition Plus Power Hour Tuesday night. A lot of confidence. Really felt good about having a good day. Very well could have a good day in qualifying and win within the win that you want to get because it's on Sunday.
And I feel like that's one of those sneaky teams. Obviously, they want to run good, but I feel like nobody expects them to win. And so I think that's, it's a perfect chance for them in qualifying to sneak up and grab some bonus points towards the countdown because they are going full time here in 2023. And finally, in Pro Stock, we got Troy Coughlin Jr. taking on Dallas Glenn and then Mason McGahey and Greg Anderson. I don't even know how to call this one, honestly.
Yeah, man. This, and, you look at it, I don't think it is what you would expect in Pro Stock. You kind of expect all elite or all KB, and this is an interesting mixture of Pro Stock. You know what? I like Mason.
You like Mason?
I like Mason.
I'm gonna go Dallas. He had a great car. Ran low ETF Q4 in Gainesville. Lost in the semifinals on a hole shot. I think Dallas Glenn. I think he comes back and he gets it done. I'm rolling with Dallas. And so also in other news, just rolling on through it. It was announced the other day that Angel Sampey is going to be the brand ambassador of the Mission Foods Too Fast, Too Tasty Challenge. Should have probably, hit the drag news button for this, but how you feel about Angel coming back? Should be doing interviews, should be on TV, talking about the Too Fast, Too Tasty Challenge, signing autographs. What do you think about Angel coming back to do that?
I feel like this is a feel-good story in many ways. I'm sure she was instrumental in bringing Mission's Foods to drag racing because for whatever reason, Mission Foods sponsors a lot of motorcycle racing.
Yeah.
And I've got to dive into that myself and figure out why, but they start with Pro Stock Motorcycle. They also sponsor American Motorcycle Association, whether it's the superbike side, the bagger side, or the flat track side. But they get introduced to the drag racing through Angel. And now they've stepped up and they're doing it across the board in drag racing with what we talked about, the Tasty Challenge, if you will. But Angel loses a ride. Arguably, rightfully so. She wasn't riding very well at times. And then there were times she rode exceptionally well. We know she can ride. She's a champion. She is one of the top women ever in drag racing and in motorsports. But for them to invest in her again, it is big, because I think half the battle, whether it's media types for like you and me, whether you're a racer, is you got to stay out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think someone doing that this weekend, making a case for the rest of his career, is Jim Campbell in Jeff Deal's ride.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was shocked when I looked at the entry list about a week ago. I'm like, Jim Campbell, who the heck is he driving for? And I furthermore was shocked. I didn't know Jeff Deal would rent his car out, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. But if you are going to be in the game, you got to be at the game.
Yes.
And I think for Angel, this is great that she can continue to have exposure, continue to have sponsorship relations, and continue to be out there amongst the NHRA personalities, because you never know. Right time, right place creates an opportunity, and she could be back on a bike very well. Heck, I don't know, put her in a car. I don't know, figure out something.
Hey, I like to see it. Like you said, we'd rather see, Angel actually on the motorcycle racing. And like you mentioned, I was kind of surprised. So, when they mentioned Angel wouldn't be returning with Vance and Hines, and Gage Herrera was taking over that seat, and then you see Gage Herrera is actually still sponsored by Mission Foods. I'm like, well, okay, the sponsorship went with him. So I was kind of surprised when you seen that Mission Foods actually, like you said, reinvested back into Angel and sponsoring her, and now she's doing this. So I think that's pretty cool. And like you said, just for us as media, a big thing for us is actually getting to the racetrack, showing people that we're committed to traveling and putting our faces out there and putting in the work. And I think it's the same thing for her.
I completely agree. And speaking on that, if you recognize the hard work that this dude puts in, I need help. Come on, sponsor up. Sponsor this show. Call me. Between the Slicks, most first drag racing show out there, whether it's white and black or the expanse of drag racing.
Where are you going with that, Lee? White or black? Where are you going with that, man?
I don't know.
Man?
I don't know.
Dang, I don't know where you're going with that. Wow. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. How much time do we have?
Man, we can shut it down or we can keep rolling. I do want to bring up the Drag Racing Central's mention. The FCC chaos testing was fun to watch. You know why? Because I was on the starting line camera. That's why.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
I was trying to do my best Masters Entertainment impersonation of the 80s.
Masters Entertainment. I like it. And what's funny about that, we mentioned Masters Entertainment. Ron Capser did kind of like a similar, burnout, with the camera ahead of him, kind of like Eddie Hill style out at Gainesville Raceway.
Yes, and I want to do that. I want to do that myself, but there wasn't anybody today that I was like,
You trust them?
Like, almost all these people have like brand new combinations, and when there's brand new combinations, that's not the time to stand in front of that
car. All right, so before we get out of here, I want to talk about one more thing. So, and I want to play on the show. Yeah, let's go here. So, NHRA announced.
You sure, Darren? I mean, my goodness, you had to think about it.
I'm sure, because I got a video for it and everything. So let's go into it, because I want to get your opinion.
Okay.
So obviously, NHRA announced that Mike Salinas will be docked 20 points. I guess we call it weight gate, and I'll read the competition plus right here. It says,
I think Sean Langdon even termed weight gate.
Yeah, weight gate. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is per competition plus. It says NHRA issued a statement on March 16, 2023, declaring Emily Motor Oil NHRA Gator Nationals top field champion Mike Salinas committed a rules infraction and while he'd been declared the winner, was docked 20 points. The infraction, which isn't clearly defined on NHRAracer.com, was described by NHRA's Jeffrey Young in a statement for CompetitionPlus.com. The NHRA Tech Department made a mathematical error in weighing the car, Young said. From what CompetitionPlus.com learned in its investigation, NHRA weighs race cars in competition regularly. The data is then relayed to the teams if the car adheres to minimum weight standards. So, you hear right there a statement from Jeffrey Young. Here's what Mike Salinas had to say on WFO Radio earlier this week.
Everybody in the chat section, you know what they want to know about Mike. They're like, just joking, have the guts to ask Mike Salinas this question. I know you were no comment initially. You can have the opportunity to appeal this. What's your take? What happened there? What's your side of the story? And are you going to appeal it?
Here's what I will tell you. And this is probably the best because it's still ongoing with a couple of different issues. Our car will weigh exactly what it weighed in Gainesville. That's the best way I can put it. The car will weigh exactly what it weighed to the best of our ability in Gainesville.
Interesting. And so, are you appealing the decision to try to get the points back?
Well, I'll keep that to myself. We're trying to. Our car weighed exactly what it needed to weigh. We know what our car weighs. So, like I said, the easiest way to shut this down is our car will weigh exactly what it weighed in Gainesville. And we're still working on a couple of issues, and I don't like throwing people under the bus. So, our car will be ready to run over there, and we have nothing to worry about, to be honest with you.
So Lee Craft, NHRA says it was a mistake on their part, and Mike
So
Salinas says
they didn't use mistake though.
They did not use mistake. Said error, but Mike Salinas says the car will weigh the same exact weight it did in Gainesville, and the car weighed the weight it should have. So I'm gonna give you the floor. Just want to get your opinion on how this all was handled.
What there's a lot there.
It is.
There's a lot there. Words mean many, many things depending on context. Mike saying it will weigh what it should weigh, does that mean it's legal? I don't know. I think it does. I have said repetitively here on this show in Competition Plus Power Hour, I almost need to make a T-shirt out of it by now. My good buddy Rob Flynn was not the problem. So I think... So I'm not an expert on this, but I have seen the process of weighing the car, and it happens after a run. Sometimes they don't even do it with the driver, actually. They just weigh the car. Then there's times they actually have the driver get out of the tow rig and hold the helmet and step on the scales. And most time it's a big, long scale, okay? Like that will fit a full top fuel dragster. I don't know about Gainesville, and I have always gone down to the top end during qualifying, and they've been weighed in every time. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that happens during eliminations. I've heard that sometimes they are waved by. I've heard other times they are checked. And it's up to the NHRA when they do that. For example, go back to Topeka. J.R. Todd disqualified for the headers and their degree of how they're laid back. Everybody was checked, and it was random, but everybody was checked. So the NHRA can do it spot, or they can do it wholesale, but it is random at times. This one seems to be, because from what I read on Competition Plus, I'm sure we read the same article, and I skimmed, I admit, and you intently read. Kudos to you. What I did get from it is that the rule book states that it is the responsibility of the team to know the weight of the car.
Yeah.
Now that's interesting, because the teams at track rely on the scales. Mm-hmm. I've never seen a team in the pits bring out scales and weigh their car like they weigh it in the shop. I've never seen that. Mm-hmm. They use the scale at the track
before they run.
So how is there a mathematical error? And if it's a procedural issue with the NHRA, this goes back so many times. I hate it for the NHRA. They have such a stellar event, great storylines, good viewership, and then there is this just one little fly in the ointment, and it happens regularly. Whether it is Gary Densham and sending him with something that was unsafe, or Terry Haddock sending him when something was unsafe and docking these guys for it. No, you said you were good. Mm-hmm. If that happens, you need to deal with it differently, I think. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I just don't think we're getting the whole story. Now, I understand, though, that I have seen on social media that Brian Lone's podcast, the NHRA Insider, that is right now probably the best place to go to get an idea of what the heck happened. But I think overall there is a lack of transparency. And if the NHRA screwed up, let's say they screwed up, I think you've got to say, all right, we screwed up. We admit it. And we're not going to dock you any points. You got by with this.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think it also speaks volumes that Steve Torrance didn't make a comment. If there's anyone that's willing to make comments,
That's a great point.
it's Steve.
That's a great point.
I mean, Steve and that team, they've gone through a teardown process. People
Mhm.
say, we think they're cheating. And they were tore down one time.
Mhm.
Probably not even one time. And they were found to be legal. This was several years ago. It was actually a championship year for them. But if anyone's going to make a comment, I think Steve Torrance would.
Mhm.
So I feel like this is a bit of, all right, guys, it was our bad, and we just need y'all to be a little quiet about it.
No, I agree. And Doug Core says, I'm on the opinion it's on NHRA, not scrappers. And like you mentioned, I don't know if we're actually getting the full story. And like you mentioned, if NHRA screwed up, just come out and say, hey, we made a mistake. It happened, take accountability. And,
Yeah.
I feel like this is a very winnable. If Mike Salinas does appeal, which I believe he will, I think he wins that appeal. I think it's very winnable.
I mean, it could be, but I mean, the appeal, the judge and the jury are the same people.
Yeah. And I feel like if this wasn't a mistake on NHRA and, they were really light, I think it would be a much bigger infraction of more than 20 points. I think they would have docked maybe.
Me too.
I feel like with a bigger, I think since NHRA you said they made an error, I think that's why they only went with 20 points.
Right. This, let's call it. It's a save face moment.
Yeah. Drag Racing Central says in F1, don't even have to guess what the penalty is or what it's for. It's honestly sad that our sport wants to be a big league sport, but it won't do big league things. So DRC very, very passionate in the comments.
I mean, granted, you talk about big leagues. Let's continue to compare DRC. You use an example of F1. I would also argue F1 over penalizes and over manages a race, even though I enjoy it. And do we always hear about fines levied to NFL players or NBA players? And no, we don't. We don't hear of every penalty. I mean, certainly in play we do, but fines levied outside of the field of play. Yeah, it's just I find it strange that it's such a small amount of points.
Mm-hmm.
Effectively, it's a round, right? Yeah, it's a round.
Yeah, round
it's a round.
Yeah.
It's a small amount of points. How do you go all day and apparently you weigh fine?
Mm-hmm.
And if it is the team's responsibility to know what that car weighs, if I'm teams, I would call and question the scales every time now.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be weighing my car.
I'm like, was anybody else, low in weight or overweight? I'm like, did anybody else have this problem?
And for all we know, maybe that's why Steve didn't make a comment. Maybe their car was underweight. Maybe everybody. I mean, who knows? I don't know. Weightgate. Weightgate is a great way to sum it up. Thank you, Sean Langdon.
All right, well, let's talk about something a little more positive now. So, like you mentioned, maybe not the final race in Arizona, but this could possibly be the final race at AKA Old Firebird International Raceway, now Wild Horse Pass Motorsports Park. Any favorite moments from Phoenix that you want to talk about? Anything that sticks out to you that you're like, I know for
one moment. There is one moment that sticks out for me from Firebird. Not people out there are going to think this is the strangest moment because it's not a win. It is not a crash. It's not a record, but it sticks out in my mind. When I think Firebird, I think 1987 during qualifying after torrential downpours, Don Garlits cannot get the chutes out, and he barely gets the car stopped before going into this makeshift pond that was a puddle. That is like, I don't know why. That just sticks in my mind. Dave McClellan calling it, and you see the swamp rat just, and it's like that far away from this puddle dipping in. I don't know why. That's when I think Firebird, I think that.
It's funny you mentioned Don Garlits. So come off championships in '85 and '86 in his dominant car, and then after that, I mean, he's basically never even heard of again.
That was '86. Sorry, yeah,
'86. Yeah, and then you go into '87, and he's basically like not even heard of again. He's like,
yeah, well, he had that he had the blowover in Spokane.
Yeah.
And then there was another blowover, if I remember correctly, and it put him out. It put him out for a while, and he didn't drive, I think, at all in 88,
He didn't.
89.
He didn't.
Yeah, it took a
You know,
while.
it's funny because he comes off the championship in '86, and then he goes to the final round with the Winter Nationals '87, I believe, and wins that. And then he's never hear from again. And the same thing with Dick LaHaye. Dick LaHaye wins the championship '87, wins the Winter Nationals in '88, and never even heard of again. It's funny how that kind of happened back-to-back years. But I feel like when you think of Phoenix, everybody thinks first of Shirley Muldowney's final win. I mean, that's what comes to mind. That was one of the first great moments at Phoenix. You think of the first ever 330-mile-per-hour pass by Tony Schumacher, 1999. How, those top fuel cars were rolling back in 99. Tony Schumacher first to go over 330 miles an hour. And then for you, I know you like this one. So let's go back 1988. Kenny Bernstein, Mark Oswald, round number 2, only separated by a round in the points. Huge. I mean, championship in the balance, and Bernstein pulls it out. That was a clutch win from Bernstein. So many battles between Bernstein and Oswald, and that was another one at Phoenix.
I can't pull off Dave McClellan, but if I may say, the battle of the Big Red Cause.
Yes.
Loved it. Loved it.
One candy red and one maroon red.
Yes.
I like
both,
it. I like
both beer wagons at one time. Yeah. I mean, it fits so well. It fits so well. So,
well, then they're both kind of like candy red, because then after he's old Milwaukee goes to Motorcraft, so then it's like kind of similar red to the Budweiser cars, though. Yeah, man, Bernstein and Oswald, that's a very underrated battle right there.
It was great battle within drag racing. Great battle, because I've mentioned this before. It wasn't just a NHRA battle. It also had the IHRA side for a couple of years at least.
Mm-hmm.
They were definitely duking it out. Paul Boone, yes, Englishtown, 86. That's a blowover, the famous one that Garlett's had. The one I'm referring to is one that, he got injured and it hurt him in the car, and it happened up there in Washington. There's only like one angle out there of it, because it was actually an AHRA race, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, but through the lights, it went up, and it was a nasty deal for sure.
Kellen Nitro Maniac TV drag files. I think he has the footage on his channel if you want to go check it out. It's pretty gnarly blowover.
Cool. Man, the blowover era was wild.
Ormsby had one in testing at Phoenix. We're talking about Phoenix. He had one in testing. So I mean, it's crazy. And what else can we think of? Larry Dixon won his first race at Phoenix, won his last race at Phoenix, won his first ever race in 1995, and then won his last race 2011 at Phenix. So
isn't Phoenix also the incident with Antron Brown and the tire?
Yes.
Yeah. A lot of incidents in
John Force blew up 2017. He blew up and had that crash. Remember when his tire hit Johnny Lindbergh's
that's
helmet?
Right.
Yeah,
that's right. It's been records, been wild moments, sadly been death, and remember what we understand as Wild Horse Pass Motorsports Park, aka Firebird Raceway. It means a lot more to the motorsports world than just asphalt drag racing. There is a whole boat drag racing side as well that people are going to lose out on. And there is even the road course over there. Not as well known. It doesn't hold major events, but you do have it as well. So there's truly a whole motorsports complex that could be under the blade.
So from what Alan Reinhardt said on WFO Radio was that the road course and the driving school that they have there at Wild Horse Pass actually extended their lease. And probably one of the only things that might not get saved is the actual drag strip, which I thought was kind of sad. It's kind of teeter-totter right now.
These deals are just so funny, man.
Yeah.
They're so funny. Who knows? I mean, someone may come around and it be saved. And, we have that situation just up the road from me in South Carolina, Greenville Pickens Speedway, a historic NASCAR track. I mean, you talking about up there with like Darlington when it comes to history. It is a track that, people thought, oh, it's sold, it's done for it. But there's someone right now attempting to try to get the lease and actually have a 2023 season at Greenville Pickens. Man, you just never know. You never know.
Hold on. As a man from the South, I am disappointed. Ladies and gentlemen, I may have heard this wrong, but he just said Greenville. I thought it was Greenville.
Well,
you just said Greenville.
you got to remember, Darren, I do at times say things purposely different from the the sayings of where I live. For example, I do not say Clemson, I say Clemson, just to make people mad.
There you go. Anything else, Lee, before I get out of here, man?
Man, I am good. I need to get out of here and go party and try to snag another interview.
I got you, man. Got you, Mo. Have fun this weekend out at the it's the third annual, right? Third annual Funny Car Classic, Texas Motorplex, and get some great interviews. And look at your mom, she laughing. I like it. But man, keep up the great work and get those stories and have fun this weekend, man.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Hey, thank you for filling in. I'm sure I heard a little bit of it that your time with Lyle was good. He's a cool dude, got a lot of stories, and I hope he has a good weekend. And we certainly have a developing story that the defending A-Field champion of the Funny Car Chaos Classic has already had attritional woes and had to put the next bullet in for competition.
Dude's a pro. You hear that? The guy's good. I like it. It's a pro. This way, actually. This way. Wait, no, this way. Yeah, this dude's a pro. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
No matter how professional we may be, we still can't remember which way to point on the camera for our live.
Exactly, right? Exactly.
Darren, I'm out, man.
All right, man. Take care. I'm going to close the show.
Adios.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning into episode 135 of Between the Slicks. Our special guest, Lyle Greenberg, he actually kicked off the show. If you weren't able to catch it, when the show's over, go back and replay it. And it was a great interview. I want to thank Lyle Greenberg for coming on the show tonight, and good luck to him here this weekend. Here's your defending A-Field champion out at the Funny Car Classic. So before we get out of here, though, we talked about Phoenix, right? This could be the final race out at Wild Horse Pass Motorsports Park. We don't know, but if you guys are free Sunday night, Competition Plus, YouTube and Facebook, 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 o'clock Eastern time, we're going to break down, go in depth, Top Fuel, Funny Car, Pro Stock. We're going to go live 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 o'clock Eastern time, and break down the final NHRA Arizona Nationals. Come join us, have fun, put your thoughts in the live chat, break it all down and have some fun. So if you guys like to, come and join me. It's going to be a lot of fun. So like I said, thank you for tuning in tonight. Catch you guys next weekend. Good night, everybody.